11 women, one unborn child, all buried in the same patch of desert. For years, nobody knew they were there. When investigators finally uncovered the graves, they believed they knew who was responsible. But no one was ever charged. And one of the prime suspects is still alive today.
10 years ago today was when we first heard about the shocking West Mesa murders. The remains of 10 women, a teenage girl, and an unborn child found in West Albuquerque.
West Mesa sits on the western edge of Albuquerque, New Mexico. In the early 2000s, this stretch of desert was almost completely empty. No houses, no streets, just scrubland, sand, and silence. Then, on February 2nd, 2009, a woman named Christine Ross was walking her dog, Ruka, along a dirt trail. The dog found something buried in the sand. Ross looked down. A bone was sticking out of the ground. She photographed it and sent the picture to her sister, a registered nurse. The reply came quickly. It was human. Police arrived expecting to find one set of remains. They were wrong. As investigators began excavating the area, they discovered more graves. Then more, and more. Eventually, they recovered the remains of 11 women and one unborn fetus, buried across roughly 92 acres of desert. What looked like an empty patch of Albuquerque had been hiding a mass grave. It became the largest crime scene in Albuquerque Police Department history. But finding the bodies was only the beginning. The victims had been reduced to skeletal remains. Years of exposure had erased much of the evidence investigators normally rely on. No fingerprints, no faces, just bones. Investigators now had to answer two questions. Who were these women? And more importantly, who put them there? The first question would take nearly a year to answer. The second remains unanswered. Before this became a story about a killer, it was a story about 11 lives that had already been erased once, by the world around them not noticing they were gone. Using dental records and DNA, medical examiners spent months identifying each set of remains. By 2010, all 11 had names. Jamie Barella was 15. Selania Edwards was also 15, the only black victim at the site, and the only one from out of state, originally from Lawton, Oklahoma. Monica Candelaria was 22. Victoria Chavez was 26. Virginia Cloven was 24. Cinnamon Elks was 32. Doreen Marquez was 24. Julie Nieto was 24. Veronica Romero was 28. Evelyn Salazar was 27. And Michelle Valdez was 22 and 4 months pregnant when she died. Most have been reported missing between roughly 2003 and 2005. Most were Hispanic and from New Mexico. And according to the Albuquerque Police Department, all but one, 15-year-old Jamie Barella, had some connection to street-level sex work, and many struggled with addiction. That single detail would come to define how the case was investigated, and, for years, how little attention it got. Family members have pushed back hard against letting that detail become the whole story. Michelle Valdez's father, Dan, later told A&E that when his daughter walked into a room, it lit up, that her smile was beautiful, and he wanted people to know she was a beautiful person, not a headline. Veronica Romero's boyfriend described her as funny and intelligent. Victoria Chavez loved the outdoors. These were daughters. Some were mothers. One was carrying a child who never got a name. And for years, most of them weren't reported missing by anyone but their own families. Families who, in several cases, said police were slow to take the disappearances seriously, precisely because of the lives these women were living. Here's what makes West Mesa different from almost every other case in this series. There was no early pattern. No task force forming in real time. No press conference warning the public about a killer on the loose. Between roughly 2003 and 2006, women were disappearing from the same few blocks of Albuquerque's East Central Avenue corridor, an area well known to police for street-level sex work and drug activity. But these disappearances weren't connected to each other. They weren't connected to anything. Each one was treated, if it was treated at all, as an isolated case. A woman with a high-risk lifestyle who had simply moved on, relapsed, or left town. Nobody was looking for a serial killer, because nobody yet knew there was one. That changed the moment investigators started pulling bodies out of the same patch of desert, one after another, over the course of months. 11 women, one burial ground. That wasn't a coincidence. It was a pattern, and it meant someone had been using this remote stretch of desert to hide victims for years. But investigators soon realized something even more unsettling. The 11 bodies might not represent the full scope of the disappearances. Police released photographs of other unidentified women who had disappeared from the same general area during the same period. Their remains have never been found, and whether they were connected to the West Mesa victims remains uncertain. The 11 women found on West Mesa were the victims investigators could see, but they couldn't tell them how many victims might still be missing. The bodies in the desert had revealed a pattern. Now investigators had to find the person behind it. By this point, investigators knew they were dealing with a killer. What they didn't know was who he was. There was no confirmed suspect, no eyewitness who could identify him, no confession, and no surviving victim who could tell police what happened. The only clues investigators had were buried in the desert itself. What investigators do know, or believe they know, comes largely from the burial pattern itself. The graves were spread across a wide area, but within what was then an isolated, undeveloped stretch of desert. Whoever buried these women appeared to know the land well enough to return to it repeatedly without being detected. That suggests someone familiar with the area, potentially someone connected in some way to the East Central Avenue corridor where several of the victims were last seen alive. But beyond that, the profile is frustratingly thin. No surviving victims, no confession, no eyewitness who can identify the killer. Just 11 sets of remains, and a person who managed to disappear behind them. Former Albuquerque Police Chief Ray Schultz put it bluntly at the time. This was too brutal, too methodical, to have been the killer's first crime. If investigators were right, then the West Mesa graves may have represented only part of what this person had done. And somewhere in Albuquerque, during the early 2000s, there may have been someone capable of this, moving through the same neighborhoods, going to work, living an ordinary life. While no one around him knew what he was hiding, the scale of the investigation was enormous. Detectives built detailed timelines for each of the 11 victims, tracing their last known movements, phone records, and associates. They interviewed roughly 200 women who had worked the same streets during the same years, asking about people who frequented the area and anyone who had made them feel unsafe. They executed search warrants. They went back through years of police reports from the East Central Corridor, and eventually, a reward of up to $100,000 was offered for information leading to an arrest. But despite all of that work, the killer remained unidentified. Then, over time, two names surfaced repeatedly. A former Albuquerque police chief would later describe them, in a 2018 interview, as the department's two strongest candidates. But there's an important distinction. Neither man has ever been charged with the West Mesa murders. Both are legally presumed innocent. What follows is only what investigators and public records have reported about why these two men came under scrutiny. The first was Lorenzo Montoya. Montoya lived roughly 3 miles from the burial site and had a documented history of violence toward women. In one incident, a former girlfriend said Montoya threatened to kill her and bury her in lime. Then, in December 2006, Montoya met a 19-year-old woman online and arranged to meet her at his home. When her boyfriend went looking for her after she failed to come outside, he found Montoya outside holding a weapon and shot him. Inside the house, police found the young woman dead, bound, and strangled. But there was a crucial problem. All 11 West Mesa victims had already been killed before Montoya died. That made him a person of interest, but it also meant investigators were looking at a man who could never be prosecuted for those murders. Montoya was never charged in connection with West Mesa, and no physical evidence has been publicly established linking him directly to the graves. Then there was Joseph Blee. Within a week of the first bone being discovered, Blee's ex-wife contacted police and suggested they investigate him. According to a search warrant affidavit, police had documented contact with Blee more than 130 times between 1990 and 2009, often in the same East Central corridor where the victims were known to spend time. Blee also ran a landscaping business. And then investigators found something that caught their attention: a plant identification tag near one of the burial sites. It reportedly pointed investigators towards someone with a landscaping connection. Detectives spent enormous effort tracing thousands of nursery receipts, trying to determine whether the tag could be connected to Blee, but they couldn't make the connection stick. In 2015, Blee was convicted on unrelated rape charges dating back to the late 1980s and early 1990s. He received a 90-year sentence and remains incarcerated. But he has never been charged in the West Mesa case, and he has denied involvement. For investigators, this was the central frustration of the case. They had victims. They had a burial ground. They had suspects. But they didn't have the evidence needed to make an arrest for the murders. Former Chief Michael Geyer later described the investigation to A&E as a series of dead ends. And after years of searching, that was the reality investigators were left with. 11 women were dead. Someone had buried them, and the person responsible was still out there. Years after the case went cold, true crime researchers examining archived satellite imagery made an unsettling discovery, one that showed just how close, and yet how far, investigators may have been. Archived satellite photography of the West Mesa burial site from 2004, during the same period when the murders were believed to be happening, appeared to show a distinct set of tire tracks leading directly into the area where the bodies would later be found. At the time, no one knew a crime scene existed there. No one had a reason to preserve it, and no one was looking at that patch of desert as evidence. By the time the remains were discovered in 2009, development had already transformed much of the surrounding area, potentially destroying physical evidence that might once have been there, tire impressions, discarded objects, or other traces left behind. The most haunting part is that the imagery had existed for years. While investigators were building timelines, interviewing witnesses, and serving search warrants, an aerial record of the landscape was sitting in an archive. But nobody knew what they were looking at. The satellite images didn't reveal a killer. They didn't prove who had driven there. And they weren't a smoking gun. But they raised an unsettling possibility. What if evidence that could have helped solve the West Mesa murders had been sitting in plain sight, years before anyone knew there was a crime scene underneath it? There was no arrest. There was no trial. And there has never been a single person publicly charged with the murders of these 11 women. By 2016, the investigation had been reduced to a single full-time detective, Mark Maroney, working through a shrinking list of leads. He continued interviewing women with backgrounds similar to those of the victims and refining suspect timelines that, over the years, eliminated some persons of interest but never produced an arrest. The Albuquerque Police Department has said the case is not closed and that investigators periodically revisit the evidence. The FBI was brought in to assist, but no breakthrough followed. And as forensic technology has advanced, so has the possibility of solving cases once considered impossible. Genetic genealogy has helped investigators identify victims and suspects in other decades-old cases. But as of the most recent public reporting, no DNA match has been announced connecting a suspect to the West Mesa graves. Joseph Blee remains alive and incarcerated, but he has never been charged with these murders. Lorenzo Montoya is dead. He was never charged in connection with West Mesa while he was alive, and that leaves investigators with an uncomfortable possibility. Either of these men could be innocent. The real killer may have been someone investigators considered and eliminated, or someone they never suspected at all. After all these years, the person responsible for the West Mesa graves may still be a name the public has never heard. For the families, there was no verdict to bring closure, only confirmation, and then years of silence. In 2020, family members, city officials, and community members gathered to dedicate a permanent memorial, Women's Memorial Park, built on land near the burial site. Each of the 11 victims now has a memorial plaque there, a place where relatives can leave flowers and remember them as more than a case file. State Representative Patricia Roybal Caballero spoke at the dedication, telling the families gathered there that it doesn't matter what someone did in their life. That life is significant because it's a human life. 8 more women who vanished from the same neighborhood during those same years have never been found. Their families are still waiting for a phone call that, for 11 other families, eventually came, even if it never came with an arrest attached. And if stories like this matter to you, subscribe to True Crime Uncovered. We dig into the cases that were forgotten, the victims whose names deserve to be remembered, and the questions that still have no answers. Somewhere in Albuquerque, or perhaps somewhere far from it now, a person who buried 11 women and an unborn child in the same stretch of desert over a period of years without ever being caught may still be alive. Investigators believe the killer could still be out there. They've been searching for answers for more than 15 years. And the ground where those women were left has since become a memorial, a quiet place with 11 plaques, built so that the women someone tried to erase would have somewhere permanent to be remembered. The West Mesa Bone Collector was never given a face, only a name investigators created because they never learned his real one. 11 women, one unborn child. And after all these years, their killer remains unknown.